Hey, we're here with Stacy, and we're talking about manufacturing environments done right. Mm-hmm. Well, what's done wrong? I guess, and you probably have a lot of experience with that, huh?
Oh, I think if you've seen episodes of I Love Lucy where they're on the chocolate assembly line.
I've seen that. I don't know. I sort of like that. I like chocolate.
Right? So. You like chocolate, but that's not the way the process is supposed to work, is it? Or maybe in school you've seen videos where it's like a very dark, dirty, dangerous environment where people are obviously putting in too many hours and not in a safe environment.
So how do you get folks, how do you get it done right?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think manufacturing really has an image problem still. There's been a total gutting of a lot of our educational programs. Mm-hmm. If you think about what's covered in a high school now, there's really not as many shop classes, are there?
Oh, no, not at all.
Which is, I think, a disservice. There's not as many vocational schools or community colleges or even four-year universities that do anything that's really hands-on. So people aren't getting exposed to manufacturing and what it is currently, which is bright, it is safe, it is clean. The repetitive, boring, physically taxing stuff, that's where the automation has already come into play. So now we're upskilling people in manufacturing to do the fun stuff.
Hey, can I ask, is there a myth that you find that what people think about it? It's not going to be dirty?
100%.
Okay.
100%. Yeah. For me personally, I grew up in more of a blue collar type family. So my dad worked for AT&T and he was, laying cable.
Yeah.
And my mom was a court reporter, so she went to trade school. And when my dad was in his late 30s and I was 3, he had a workplace injury. So then it turned into, as the only child, I was the one responsible for helping fix all the things at home. So in my opinion, anything around how it's made or how it's fixed, how you keep it working, that's manufacturing, to use sort of a broad term. Right. So I've always been interested in that. I've always been, able and willing to get my hands dirty. And that was something that when I was graduating from an engineering program and trying to apply at manufacturing companies, I got challenged on over and over. Why would you, as a 21-year-old
you're gonna hurt
female,
your fingernails,
want to work in manufacturing? So I got to the point, Randy, where I would staple pictures of my project car to my resume.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Say, all this work, work here, this is all my work. I did the body work on this car. I did all this, So to me, manufacturing is the economic engine of our country, and I firmly believe that, and there is a place for manufacturing. And every time I raise my hand in manufacturing for an opportunity, I got it, because there's always more to do and not enough people to do it. So if you have a naturally curious mind, if you like solving problems, I want to help you get into the industry. And I do that in a lot of ways. I volunteer, I do a lot of community, support, but with companies, what I focus on is, let me come in as an outsider and see this with a fresh set of eyes and help you understand the changes you can make to show your potential employees, customers, and investors just how amazing your organization is.
And that's done right.
That's done right.
How does that process work, though? I mean, because again, you can be working with so many different types of people, correct?
Yeah. So usually it's a site visit, right? So somebody will reach out. I had a manufacturer out on the east side of Cleveland reach out. We had a good phone call. We liked what we were saying to each other, had a kind of good connection, brought me on site. I talked with him and the senior leaders, and then I spent the rest of the day out on the floor, talking with folks on the floor to say, okay, what are you responsible for? What do you like here? What's been changing? What things would really help you do your job better? If you didn't have a budget or a restriction, what's something that you would do differently here, right? And then I use all of my insights and experience to ask even more probing questions based on the answers that I'm getting from these groups. And then I summarize it in a way that it's okay, here are the main themes of what I'm hearing. Here are solutions I've seen that address these types of issues at other organizations. And then we talk about it with the leaders and say, what do you think? Does this align with what you were seeing? Is this totally blowing your mind right now? Talk to me about your availability of resources and budget. what do you want to try to tackle first? And how much support do you want from me versus what do you want to take on yourself with maybe a check-in from me later on?
How many, and again, this will change, but how many typically are there 3, 4, 5 areas that you usually
Yeah, that's a great question.
here, or?
So it kind of depends on the nature of the specific company. So however many departments they have, like maybe they have, shipping and receiving.
Yeah.
Right. And then they've got initial raw material inspection. And then they've got, maybe polishing and grinding. Then maybe they have assembly and QA. So for each of those are stops along the way that I would make.
Okay.
And then the back office stuff, right? Because people might think, oh, well, all the areas of opportunity are on the shop floor. Not necessarily. Sometimes the folks in the office are still dealing with stacks of paper in 2024.
Yeah, okay,
and there's
right,
some
yeah.
work we can do to help make their lives a little easier, make the quality and consistency higher, and maybe shorten up those lead times too.
And does the sense of the people's happiness and the culture come out as well? Is that something that gets revealed and shared?
That is the heart of it, Randy, right? Because culture really does eat strategy for breakfast. People say, what the heck is culture? So the way I like to describe culture is it's the how behind the scenes, how decisions get made, how things actually get done, how people are getting noticed and promoted, right? So it's things that you're not going to read on the mission statement. But if you're at a company long enough, everybody knows that culture and the how.
Yeah, that's kind of the reality.
Mm-hmm.
You talk about the authenticity, that's where it comes through, and they can't hide it probably when you get to walk out there and talk to, a dozen, 2 dozen, 3 dozen people.
Exactly.
It comes out. It kind of exposes itself.
Exactly.
So they're done. So done right is just you're going to get it right for these folks, right?
I'm going to help them see the light, Randy.
Is there anything? Well, let me ask you again. What spurs them to? Is there there's a manufacturing problem? Is there the pain that spurs them to want this?
Typically, it's pain points.
Okay,
Yep,
yeah.
and I can even help articulate those in dollar figures, right?
Okay.
Because a lot of times you'll say, well, maybe I don't want to make the investment in some of these. It's like, okay, well, if you have people at the supervisory level that get promoted and within 3 months they're leaving, how much does it cost you in terms of staff time to find a new person, to interview that person, to train that person? And oh, by the way, how much overtime are you paying everyone else to fill that gap? How many people are getting disgruntled? How many of those are going to leave in that time?
Doing more thinking for the eyes that aren't looking in the right direction.
Exactly.
I bet it's very enlightening for some folks.
For sure. Yep.
Manufacturing. If you want your manufacturing environment done right, I think Stacy can help.
Absolutely, Randy.